also, if somebody asks somebody that works, there should be somebody that could also explain it. And then when you're at the kiosk, the instructions need to be clear, and usually a kiosk is a wizard. So how you do the wizard is, but you really don't, help. How do you do help? Like when I'm thinking about the kiosk, and somebody needs help, they press help, and then the little red light goes off, and then the person comes to help them. So, but you gotta be able to find all that stuff, and if you don't know that it's coming next in the wizard, you don't think it's there. So you need information sent. So the sense of information is incredibly important, and that's part of findability. And user.
And then we have 3 local giveaways.
Peter Morville's user experience study right now.
Is a 1-year subscription to Frodo IO.
I got it.
Yeah.
And that is Ning Kwang Song. Did I pronounce that correctly?
So I would say get his, Peter Moore will just get his books. Peter Twingle, Search Patterns, Ambient Findability, and of course, Information Architecture, the Polar Bear book.
All right, and then
And take the
the second
information
one is
architecture
a
classes here,
reaction.
because they're so good.
Awesome.
And that is Caitlin Burnell.
Kind of feel the value of the codes in the organization.
Oh, I also have in here, because you have to convince people the business value of duplicate content.
All right, I promise I don't know any of them personally,
So
so.
that's, why should we care? So, that search
And this last
conversions,
prize is $100 off.
competition that
purchase
performs
at
you. I usually deal with websites most of the time, so. And it's a waste of a search engine's resources, and any time a search engine, particularly a product, so like Google or Bing, if you use it as a site search engine, which a lot of people do, or anytime you have a site search engine, and I see this on intranets a lot, is you can crash the search engine if you deliver too much duplicate content. And what happens when it crashes in front of the user?
So that we send them.
Yeah, and do
Their
they
email
trust?
addresses and then
Do they
they'll
trust
send
it?
you.
Exactly.
It's useless, like a strike by us.
Everyone else, you should have an
The
email
brand
from
impact
me
is
or from the
powerful.
Eventbrite site.
And that's
this morning,
actually
and
number
then another
one,
you'll get this afternoon.
but people need to see the business
Digital
values.
swag that has a lot of discounts in there, and then there's also a
So, I go through that.
giveaway, that they're giving away, 1 or 2 things at a global level. So if you take a look at that,
Oh.
make sure you take a look
Because
at
it's
those
almost
things.
self-released by the users.
And we will go ahead,
Users and ops.
we're about a 5-minute
Duplicate.
delay here on our getting
Shut
started,
down
but,
to the other.
and we really are this time, I didn't push the schedule.
Yeah, but people,
So, I
because
appreciate all
the
of you.
architecture of Stack Exchange
This will be the last official
is
remarks
not,
from me, so
is
again,
just
thank you
poor.
everybody for coming, this is
It's
like
a
our
horrible
biggest
site.
turnout, so.
A lot of people use search instead of browse.
Yeah.
That means the architecture's bad, and that's why they keep getting all this frickin' duplicate content.
And never really use always
Exactly, that's the point.
how could that be? The reason that I'm going to stack is because it's the answers I'm looking for and research.
And I have the opposite effect, where I go to Stack Exchange and I don't get the answers I'm looking for. So it's accessible, but it's not desirable. So it's doesn't have a good information architecture, I have to use Google to go find things on Stack Exchange. I shouldn't have to use the web search engine to navigate a site. It's just, that's a big indicator that there's something wrong with the site.
So,
It doesn't change the fact that users have adopted that behavior. I guess it's what could it be like? What's a good example? Somewhere you never.
may or may not get up to standing, so bothering and sitting back. But these chairs have armrests, so yeah, might be good to go.
Reasonably comfortable.
No, they're horribly architected.
Yeah.
Never used the Mayo Clinic.
Mayo Clinic's the best architect. Whether he bought my client, whether he
true.
bought my
Randy,
client.
see Randy, you too.
What speakers have you gone and seen today?
Oh,
So that they could outline, so they could.
so Andy,
Okay.
Joshua,
Like one of their
how
sites.
about you?
Darren and
Plot
How was
sites,
Darren?
Yeah, Darren's good.
destroy
Good
architecture.
speaker.
Yeah, I
Destroyed the
think a couple years ago,
dictionary.
actually. What about police?
This got a very
No, Mayo
tactful,
Clinic's the best
very,
architected.
this,
Whether he is not.
case study about, how they, tackled this whole issue with cataloging all these different parts with different numbers and different names, and kind of bringing them into one system, so there's a lot to think of
Like in
from that.
Yeah, yeah.
How'd you like,
Believe it or
Joshua's
not, Microsoft
presentation?
It's good. It's
better
interesting,
architecture than people think it is.
you don't think about the
Because people
impairments.
really
So,
can
yeah,
find everything.
wrote a bunch of notes. He said something like 50 million people.
Well, I'm not saying
50
we're
million
perfect,
people have a
but they're
disability.
better
And I
than
think
most.
6.2% of those have difficulties seeing and hearing. So it's like, you gotta think of that when you're designing different stuff. And it's very interesting.
Doesn't it seem like there's too much compensation?
No, but there,
I wish I
but
could
people
have
from
seen
the
that one.
research
Hopefully there'll be a video on that.
Amazon's also a research.
Yeah, I'm always
Mostly
aware of
text-based. So text-based documents are
accessibilities
easier
for,
for than other types of documents.
screen readers and that sort of thing, but
So-
generally inclusivity, content design is a bigger and bigger topic, so.
We're-
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
researching
There's
things, I think,
more to
at
learn
Amazon.
about that.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like there's like
Oh, I
you
know.
got your 4 senses: you see, sight, hear,
Yeah.
touch. And it was interesting. Like
They
you just
don't
mentioned, like an
they
alarm.
don't
Like you might sometimes not be able to see it because it's on the other one.
I don't
might
think
not be
it-
able to
you're-
hear
you're
it for
correct.
whatever reason. So you can have
Yeah.
now technology with watches where it vibrates sometimes.
So you see what I mean? Do you see what I mean? It's,
Yeah.
it's,
I don't know what to think about.
it is, and most people, it's the same with search and
Yeah, and the description I thought was interesting was that like,
it's just easier if you don't.
yeah, the design for different abilities for people throughout the day, you're not gonna throughout the day, but throughout
It's up
time,
to you,
they might
but,
have
are they, I don't know,
somebody
are they
that
recording
has
this?
situational disability.
But they are
which I was
archiving
interesting,
that,
I
so.
never thought of.
Yeah, he said. So I wrote it down too. It was interesting.
But this you should know.
It's called the Microsoft Inclusive Design Kit, and there's a picture of exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The 4 senses, and then it's like a temporary, a permanent, or a, there was something else too.
Oh, I'm not going for it.
Microsoft Inclusive
It's free.
Design.
Then, what do you?
That's what I just, what it is, why it's important, and what.
Are you a UX designer?
No,
So probably what I
digital
will-
marketing, change optimization, but also some content strategy as well. So
I don't think
I'm
you
just
know
kind
what
of
this stuff.
stumbling
That's
into UX and
It's
methodologies
very
and
easy to
philosophies,
think, you know, I didn't when I first started out.
information architecture and research. And
Yeah.
such.
It's-
I mean, it's weird, like,
It's up to
a
you.
long time ago, I know what UX was, and then I realized like, oh,
Okay, so,
they're
those breaks
fundamental
2 and
principles
breaks
I've been
3.
doing this whole time.
So
that
Yeah.
are
if you wanna
ingrained
come
in
for the
different
end
parts
part,
of
that's fine.
digital.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. How about yourself?
Graphic design background, right? So like 6 years professional experience in design, trying to transition, and part of this UX field
I
for like 2
understand.
years.
It's a little,
I was here
it's
last
fuzzy
year.
outside.
Okay.
Hi guys, I'm Sherry, and just so you know, I am handicapped, so if you don't mind, when I get excited, I'll get up. and that's Bob McCain. He makes a great pointer. What, I wanna know, first of all, any of you guys technical? How technical are you guys? Moderate?
In relation to what?
Well, if I asked you what robots exclusion was, do you know what that is? Okay, I did not create this workshop for technical people, even though technical people find it helpful. As I go through this, because everything will be downloadable, I have all kinds of resources, and what I do is I actually have beautiful handwriting, is I will write down any of the resources that I show you that you want to be included, so you can download not only this presentation, you'll be able to download bibliography, guidelines, all that kind of stuff. So you just tell me what you want, and I'll write it down and it'll go up. I'm just putting this up because this is how I feel UX is. This is what I think UX is, and the bottom line is people can't use what they can't find, and it really annoys people to get duplicate after duplicate after duplicate, and you can actually crash a search engine. You can actually crash a knowledge base if you constantly deliver duplicate content to it. And so what happens when that happens in front of a user? What do they think? Pardon my language. They think, "Oh, this sucks," or they say another word. So that's why it's important. Is people want to be able to find it, and duplicate content can impede that findability. And people tend to think of duplicate content as a copy machine. And to technology, it's not a copy machine, it's something different. So that's what I'm gonna go through, is what it is, why it's important. So if you have, like a blog, for example, if you have a site with a blog, people don't realize the blog software itself delivers duplicate content. And if you don't manage it in the first place, it's gonna cost a lot of money in the long run. So what I also do is, what would you like to learn the most? What it is and how to manage it?
Are you asking me or just
Everybody.
generally?
Yeah, everybody, just generally, what would you like to learn?
I used to see it in analogs. So, practical, concrete things that you can look at in the real world and maybe build a model off of that.
Okay? It's not in this presentation, but
Like the kiosk thing,
yeah, the kiosk.
going to Walmart, even going to Walmart versus Giant Eagle,
Mhm.
there are stark differences in the self-checkout kiosks that they have between them. I fucking hate Giant Eagle because they make you use the goddamn loyalty card. Versus Walmart, it's walk up, I stick my credit card in before I do anything almost. Bring the shit, and as soon as there's a sufficient time pause, it will check it out. Like, totally hands off, totally intuitive. Love that system, hate the Giant Eagle system. So having that really is a good way for me to figure out user experience and have that in the back of my head. And this duplicate
Content.
duplicate content. I can think of some things that haven't built a big model off of it yet. So
So this will help websites and intranets. This is what, and knowledge bases, is what this is gonna help. Just so you know. And I can, because we did NASA's kiosk, I'll see what I can send you
okay.
that's not covered in the contract. So that's gonna be extra. Is that something you guys would be interested in?
I'm interested in just tactics and ways of finding duplicate content,
Oh.
auditing a site for duplicate content.
I have that,
Cool. Yeah.
okay?
And my team is looking at how to duplicate content strategically throughout our site, because we manage a help center for software.
Okay,
So using it appropriately rather than overusing it.
okay, I have that. So, because that's a fallacy, is that people think that people don't ever want duplicate content, and that's not true. Sometimes not sometimes, if you only provide one way to access information, it's orphaning it or siloing it, it becomes more difficult to find. So, there's duplicate content that is absolutely acceptable. And at the foundation of all of this is information architecture. If you don't get the information architecture right in the first place, you're gonna spend a lot of time managing duplicate content. And so, since it's mostly an afterthought, I can get people moving in the right direction. And then when they're ready to make the right decision with a good content management system, with good, the right tests to determine the information architecture, and then you migrate, then you don't have to manage it as much. But it is ongoing. It's not something you do once and you don't think about it again. Hello.
This was part of World Wide.
Oh, of course. I'm just not standing up. If you want me to stand up, I will. Anybody else? Okay. So we get a break at 2 and 3. So I was just showing the user experience honeycomb. I love this thing. And I still think that the best UX program in the country is here at Kent State. So I just love this place. All right. So I am a nerd. I am an SEO person, an information architect, a web designer, a web developer. My first PhD program was in literature and language, Japanese. My master's degree is in Japanese. I am one of this weird nerd person, and I love it. And I have a niece who loves math, and I'm very proud of her. So I have had to deal with duplicate content on many levels. I've had to deal with it in software, kiosks, libraries in particular. And because I manage a lot of websites, I have to deal with it with websites. So this is what we're gonna go over. What is it? How do we identify it? Why should we care? And I do this because sometimes you have to convince people, the upper management or you're somebody, that we have to do this, or don't buy this, it's not gonna help you. Duplicate content is not what we think it is. I mean, it was, like I said, a big surprise to me. And there are 8 specific solutions that I use, and I'll show you how to apply them. The idea isn't, you don't have to use all 8 of them. The point is they have to support each other. So it's like putting a do not enter sign and putting a sign go this way. So don't contradict, as long as you don't contradict yourself with those 8 things, you'll be fine. So this is what I want to change. Human users see duplicate content like a copy machine, or they see in Google search results, same thing, bing, same thing. But technology sees it like a funnel. And at this funnel, there are different filters. And that's how you identify duplicate content, is what's at the top of the filter, what's in the middle filter, what's at the bottom filter, and when is it good and when is it bad. So hopefully you'll understand better what that funnel is. And as I said, I have lots of citations for those of you who are nerds like me. And if you just want it to, just let me know and I'll include it in the downloadable material. Now, sometimes I find a web page or something that's a perfect example. So you might see some ugly screenshots, but please understand they're ugly, but they communicate really well, and that's why I picked them. And if somebody I show is a client, I will be honest with you about that. And if they're a competitor of my client, I will be honest about that too. But usually I just try to find a screenshot that's really good. He asked me a very good question, what's the best architected site I've seen? Mayo Clinic. Some of the worst software I've seen, Adobe. And I love Photoshop, but it was I don't wanna use it anymore. Microsoft Excel 2007. So, good. Has it improved?
Well, there's people who add versions of Office or great versions of it.
Ironically, Microsoft is one of my clients. But they don't always listen to me. That's okay. I give them the good advice. So, is this duplicate content? And why or why not do you think this is duplicate content?
CSS in the thing.
Yeah,
It
It
is.
is literally
Yeah.
it is duplicate content.
yes. It's duplicate content to a search engine. And they do not use appearance to determine whether something is duplicate content. Just be aware of that.
Unless they're declaring a CSS file.
But they do parse your CSS files, for those of you. So cascading CSS is cascading style sheets. So your style guides, Google does look at your style guides, but they don't determine it's duplicate by looking at your style guides. Okay, so here's WebMD, here's the same article on MedicineNet. Is this duplicate content? What do you think? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes, same.
Okay, okay. Yes, it is, to a search engine. Why do you think it's duplicate content?
Same content.
Actually, it's not.
I thought the titles were the same.
This is different,
Oh, that's
this
true.
is different,
Ah.
this is different. Look at, you know, these linked slideshows, this is different.
Whatever feature that you came up with is close enough.
Yeah, so this is, but it is duplicate content to a search engine. All right, so Home Depot. So, okay, my obsession with usability is toilets. So that's why I use toilets as an example, because everybody uses them. The most user-friendly toilets in the world are in Japan. Hence the Japanese connection. So,
What was that one this morning? Oh, you weren't here.
I wasn't here.
Keynote speaker mentioned a $7,000 to $9,000 toilet with a fully immersive experience.
Immersive, that doesn't sound right.
He said it's, I don't know.
It was supported by Alexa too, and there was like
It's
LED
listening.
lights and music.
No, the music part's really good, because if you're in a public place, especially if you're female, you don't want people listening to you.
Well, he then came back and he said, it's good, it's Alexa, so it's listening to you.
That's just wrong. So this is shop 451s for 2-piece toilets, and there's filters and brands. So is this duplicate content to a search engine and to technology?
No.
Actually, this is a really horrible example of duplicate content.
But it's not the same, is it?
Well, that's the top of the page, that's just further down the page. Anytime you see things like this, anytime you see things like sorting parameters, it means duplicate content. Amazon, absolutely.
Anything with the filter?
Yep, sorting, yeah, so faceted, so if you're an information architect, faceted classification, absolutely. So, I have in here, there's like 10 things, if you see it on a website, boom, it's duplicate content. So,
So what makes it duplicate, that the information appears on other websites?
no, it appears over and over and over again.
Okay.
So it's like multiple versions of the same thing?
Yep,
if
Okay,
you were
like
to.
40 toilets, okay,
Yeah,
is 40
Yep.
versions of duplicate content.
Yep.
Okay.
So if you strip away the aesthetic and you were to look at basically the text of that, there's not a whole lot separating one foot from the other apart from maybe brand name and a couple specs. Other than that, it's just
exactly,
blah.
exactly. So just look for things like this. Sort by this. Now, we're not saying not to have this for the users, but just know technology is gonna look at this and go, uh-oh. And that includes the software you build. All right, so here's an earlier version of Home Depot, and this is the reason I like to use it, because there's so many things on here that indicate duplicate content. So, you know, one of the first things is refining it. Another thing is sort by top sellers and how many results per page. I mean, think about how many URLs are gonna result from all of this. It's huge. If you're gonna view a grid, view by list. Some people prefer grid, some people prefer list. A grid layout from a shopping perspective is what, because users get to see more information, so there's a stronger information sent. But when you do it, it results in content delivery. Anytime you have a site search engine, you're delivering duplicate content to a web search engine. And there's a very straightforward solution to that, but you have to make sure that whatever you're using to develop your website will support it. So this is why faceted classification leads to duplicate content delivery. So for example, this is not on wine.com, not a client. Look at this is what's being delivered. Now, what do you think if you don't manage that, what that happens to technology? Well, if you're dealing with technology, they're gonna see all this duplicate content, and this is where you can crash it. And then whatever is delivering it is viewed as not trustworthy, and if it's a crawler is just something that on the web, it indexes text and follows links. So it just reads text, follows links, and a lot of search engines are like that. And your site search engine is just confined to your website. If you have software, your software search engine is confined to the software items that you have available. And you just don't want this crashing for people. So this is why faceted classification, you better be sure that your target audience wants that content organized by this. So, in other words, you have 19+ million pages leading to one destination page. So this is why I asked if they wanted. I was asked to talk about this because people don't realize that we're doing this. So here is a blog, and it's got 2 tags. It has multiple tags, but it's content and content management. Do you think this delivers duplicate content? Yes, no, maybe. What do you think it is? Now, looking at it, it doesn't look like it's delivering duplicate content, does it?
Well, if the blogs contain similar tags, they'll be duplicated on both category pages, right?
Right. So for the most part, it's a maybe. It depends on how much content overlap there is. If there's too much content overlap, it is duplicate content. In fact, anybody who's an SEO will tell you not to use tags on a blog. Just filter them out from being crawled by a search engine. And once you determine that users genuinely want those tags, add it to your formal categorization structure. But if you tag, so just know that out of the box blog software delivers duplicate content through a tagging system. though, unless you have a specific type of website, a tagging system is more problematic than it should be. And there's actually an easy way to fix this, but it depends. So, here we go. Press release. National Cancer Institute, National Institute of Health. Is this duplicate content? Yes, no, maybe. It's very likely. Why? Why would you think this is likely?
Same article.
So it's the same content, and it's the same category, very likely. And also, the National Cancer Institute is controlled, is part of the National Institute of Health. Okay, so what if it's National Institute of Health and a press release on a organization website? Yes, no, maybe, bless you.
Thank you.
Probably, probably not. What do you think it is?
Maybe.
Actually, it's very unlikely this is being considered duplicate content.
I'm still confused. It's the same information?
Yep,
How is it not duplicate content?
we're gonna get to that,
Alright,
because that's why I wanted to show you this, is you can't look at something and know it's duplicate content. That's not how technology works. So even though these look the same, it's the same basic article. They're two completely different websites. They have different boilerplates, they have different linkage, they have different things that makes this very likely and this is unlikely, and that's what I'm gonna show you. That's why I start with this.
gotcha.
If you search for that exact headline.
You would get the National Institute of Health first, and this would be very close behind it.
And then what's the importance of if it is or if it is not duplicate content?
Users, always users. Comes down to users and the search, it's the search experience. But where do they wanna get the information? Not everybody wants to go to the National Institute of Health, not everybody, some people are pharmacists. Where do you think the pharmacists wanna go? They wanna go to an organization that has that information. So,
Like maybe trustworthy, they trust a different website.
yeah. So, yeah, the point of me starting it like this is if you're confused, so was I. Okay, when I first started learning about duplicate content, I was like, you know, the WTF. It was really jolting to me. And, you know, web search engines are my clients, I'll be perfectly honest about that. So I work with software engineers, it'll be 24 years now. And they help me understand what is and is not duplicate content, and now I understand a lot better. And I try to communicate what you should look for and how you can fix it to technical and non-technical people alike. And so design for difference is managing your duplicate content so you're a better site. So these are the things. So whenever you hear these things, automatically know you have to manage duplicate content. Multiple languages, multiple countries, multiple product categories, HTTPS versus HTTP. Even something as silly as a / can throw off technology. So how many of you have to deal with any of these things? Yeah. So there's some things you do to manage it and some things you don't. So I would, if you're getting any kind of, if you're either developing software or you're buying software, talk to somebody and really talk to somebody and find out if any of these things are gonna be a part of it. And if you have control over some things. Yes, did you have a question?
Oh, no,
Oh,
I
you're
was
just-
just scratching.
Yeah, I'm having a bad hair day, so I put Mr. Beret on. Okay, so, like I said, this is how users see duplicate content. The copy machine, they see it either as an exact match or a near exact match. Okay, and this is where we have it overlap. Technology sees it as a funnel. And so, when you look at technology, they don't wanna see an exact replica, because you could just change the appearance of something. Because it's just like that. Or you can make it invisible. I actually have this article, so. Do you want a copy of this? Or is it too, if you're a technical person, I guarantee you you're gonna want it. If you're not a technical person, you wouldn't want it. Okay,
Yeah, I'm interested in
okay, do you want me to upload it then?
that. Yeah.
Okay.
Where would I find it?
I will, I'm giving everything to Carrie Ann, and
Okay.
she will put all the downloadable stuff in place. Okay,
Cool. Thanks.
okay, let's get back to this. So they're looking for something called resemblance. And and that's what I just showed you, this is what people are trying to find. So they're not looking if it's an exact match. So remember how you were saying that it's the same content, it's the same press release? How come a press release on one site is considered duplicate content and a press release on another site is not considered duplicate content? That's weird, isn't it? But that's not how the search engines see it, it's not how technology sees it. So, what the? Ooh, this black. Okay. So I have this one too. You want that one?
Yeah,
Okay.
pick whatever you got.
So they're roughly the same. And Google calls it appreciably similar, which is stupid. Nobody uses that label. But they do call it copied content. So, what I have also, if we go back to Acrobat, is I have Google's most recent search quality guidelines, and they consider duplicate content to be of the lowest quality. Would you like Google's most recent guidelines?
I actually have that already.
Okay. Does anybody else want it? So they consider it low quality. Okay. So I will make sure Google guidelines are up there too. So that's what we're looking for, is a filter that's looking for resemblance, not an exact replica. And what things are they trying to determine that resemble each other? Why should we care? Because if you don't manage it, you're gonna see a dip in traffic. And not just website traffic as in a web search engine, but your site search engines could be less accurate. So we see this all the time. So whenever we see a dip, we look for, first thing you look at is look in the mirror. What are we doing that would cause this dip? And a lot of times it will be duplicate content. And this actually happened on a travel site. They did the faceted classification thing, and boom, their traffic plummeted. And then once they started managing the duplicate, they started doing things, it's the 8 things I'm gonna show you, it went up and went up, and now they have their own YouTube channel that gets over 10 million unique visitors a month. And people people average 11 to 12 page views per visit, so they're actually using the site, and there's actually more orders and more searches placed.
But the other slide, yeah, the two tips.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go at the beginning of the year, what is this, we have more context to this?
yes, it was the beginning of the year, because usually January is a really good time to launch redesign.
Okay.
Because people are coming back from vacation, in the US, people are coming back from vacation. And the first 2 weeks, they don't care. The second 2 weeks, that's a really, so the first 2 weeks is when you launch it. So, this was a real concern. So, just know that if you have aggregation or any of those things I showed you, it's gonna be an ongoing process. It's not gonna be, I'm gonna fix it and you're done. It's a constant management and seeing, what you're doing is working.
Was that, sorry, this is totally probably unrelated, but that January graphic, is that showing how many users used?
Yeah, so this is in, software.
Gotcha. So this is kind of interesting because this is
Boom.
quantitative instead of qualitative. So you don't know the reasons. Like, what if they could be on vacation from the holidays and stuff, and maybe that's why there's a some of it that dip. No.
No, it was
Not at all.
because they launched the website and they didn't, I know because it's one of my clients and
Gotcha.
that's how I got it. It was their blog. That
Okay.
was the issues. So they didn't manage their blogs very well. That's why I include blogs in this. And if it gives you any frame of reference, Huffington Post is one of my clients. So I work on a huge blog.
Mhm.
And I taught them how to manage duplicate content. So you're actually getting, this is stuff I've taught Huffington Post. So if that helps.
We need something, don't do it at the beginning.
No, well, Huffington Post used to be a horrible site. It's a lot better than it used to be, but it took a long time. This isn't Huffington Post. Obviously, they have far more users than this, but it was the blog. We were able to identify it. And I'm a UX person, so I do qualitative, quantitative data always has to have qualitative data so the context is correct. So we knew by looking at this that it was the blog. So once we managed to get the blog back to where it should be, it bounced, traffic and users bounced right back up. This was a travel site, and their problem was they tried to, every option they could think of, like Home Depot did, every option they could think of, and then people would, search engines could just find the content. Instead, search engines determined that the site's not trustworthy, and they had a big traffic drop, so we had to, we found out that faceted classification was the wrong information architecture. And that, you could tell, it took a little while to fix, but it got fixed.
When you say faceted, that's, you basically mean tagging.
No,
No.
faceted classification, just think Home Depot.
So like department organization?
Have you read Information Architecture for the World Wide Web or Information Architecture for the World and Beyond?
No.
I would highly recommend that you read that. Have you, any of you read that? All right, so Sherry, the book person. Okay. We call it the Polar Bear book.
Mm.
You're fully going on cover?
Yep.
You need to search it by.
Aww. Amazon got it wrong, and so did Google. Let's go Morville. The Polar Bear book. Get the latest edition. It explains faceted classification really well. Faceted classification, there's nothing wrong with it if that is how people organize content. But if they don't organize content that way, it's not much help. Another option that I can make available to you is, let's see, get out of here. you read Donna Spencer's book, Practical Information Architecture? Practical Guide to Information Architecture. This, you can actually, it's available as a PDF on the web. So these two books will explain to you how people typically organize information. Do they organize it by topic? Do they organize it alphabetically? Do they organize by date, by geography? Is it linear? Is it faceted?
Linear. So that would be like time or chronological.
Exactly, chronological.
Facet would be categorizing.
Facets look like, that's network. So faceted, this would be a facet taxonomy. Alphabetical, hierarchical, flat taxonomy.
Those are all examples of facet.
No, facets at the bottom,
Store configuration.
yeah. I will,
So the honeycomb, that's more of a graph.
yeah, are all of you familiar with these different types of ways people organize information? Okay, if you're not, Practical Guide to Information Architecture. If you email me, I will send you the link to where you can download it for free. And Information Architecture for the World and Beyond are essential, they're Bibles. They're
That's the
information.
polar bear.
Yeah, Polar Bear. So if you determine that you're, because it's users first, technology second. This is how you organize information. You would always start with the users. How do they organize information? How do you guys determine how people organize information? I use card sort tests. And I use the open card sort to get initial user mental models, and then I do a follow-up test to validate. I use Optimal Workshop. I know there's other software out there. And then once I know the information architecture, then I can move on to the technical architecture as a developer. Now, my specialty is medical sites because I have a degree in genetics and I've worked in genetics labs for 10 years. So I have that kind of vocabulary. That's why I know Mayo Clinic so well. So, let's say you determine that you're gonna deliver duplicate content. What's gonna happen is you design the site, and then when you're trying to promote a website, all of a sudden, you can't promote it because the software you bought doesn't support duplicate content management. And then you have to spend a lot of money either buying another system or hiring a consultant to help you manage it. And it's not cheap. So I start with qualitative. The other thing is, contrary to what people think, an index count are the number of documents that are available to rank in any search engine. When you deliver duplicate content, less is available to rank. So this is an easy thing to think of. Let's say you have, this is jargon, index count or crawler cap. You want to listen for these words, because if you hear these words, every website has it. So let's say, and it's very heavily dependent on how trustworthy your site is seen. So your site's link development is hugely, hugely important. So let's say your website has 1,000 articles, 500 and printer-friendly format. So what happens is the search engines will filter out the printer-friendly version. Now instead of 1,000 pages available to rank, you have half. Do you think management wants to see that? Do you think any business or organization wants to see that? Because now all of a sudden, they only can show up for half of a section of a website. It's not that good. So, search conversions, if certain things are filtered out, the best converting pages won't appear in search results. And so that really impacts the business. This happened on a law site, and I usually hate law sites because I'm not fond of lawyers. What Google did, because they didn't filter out their site search engine, Google auto-filled it, and the best converting pages were gone. And eventually Google didn't come to the site as often because they deemed the site as untrustworthy. So you can imagine the graph. And so all we had to do was exclude the search results pages from being crawled, boom, back into Google. So something as simple as this can really, really crash a site. The competition, sometimes your partner sites rank better, but that depends. That one's a depends, because let's say somebody picks up your article, you wrote something, a blog post, for example, and it shows up on Huffington Post. Huffington Post has higher link development, higher trust value. I'm gonna want people to go to Huffington Post. And as long as Huffington Post is citing my article properly, I'm good with it. So it depends. You'll get more visibility depending on who the competitor is. But if it's your competition and they're copying you, you have a problem. Which news release has better search engine visibility? It's this one, because the National Institute of Health has higher link development than the National Cancer Institute. Well, waste of search engines' resources. The search engine wants the original source of content. They don't want those 19 million copies. And once they see that your site's not trustworthy, they won't crawl it. You can check. Do any of you use Google Search Console? Yeah. Go in there under this tab and you can check and see if anything is causing any problems. And this should be number one, is when you deliver duplicate content in the wrong way, people don't trust your site. They don't trust your software and they don't trust your intranet. So this is why I do all this. So does all these reasons make sense? Is there something that you want me to go over real quick? Because there's a break. Do you think this would convince somebody higher up to do the right thing? Or do they do the less expensive thing? That's the best way I put it, is that if you can do this really well. So like, know if you're gonna use out of the box blog software, know you're gonna have duplicate content issues. You're also gonna have archiving issues. So know you're gonna have to, if you're a developer, you know you're gonna have to configure it differently. If you know you're gonna have a site search engine, you know that that can be an issue. There's a really easy fix for it. Are you able to implement that? That's the thing things you have to ask. I want to give you guys your break, so that's why I'm asking. I don't want to move on unless this is okay for you. Is it Okay.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, you wanna take a break?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright.
I'm actually gonna jump over to another session.
That's okay.
I didn't realize this was going for multiple sessions, but I really did appreciate your information.
Okay, well, you wanna take a quick look at materials to make sure that,
Sure. And you mentioned you'll share this online?
yes, so. Okay, so this is Google's quality guidelines. Okay, this is a really good,
I've got it, I just haven't taken the time to read all of it, I'll go
oh, I
through
know,
parts of
oh,
it, it's just so deep.
I know, but the thing is, it's searchable,
Yeah, that is true.
so would you like that?
Sure, yeah, you won't mind putting that up. And then those other documents from Brown, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, those were interesting, I haven't seen those before.
Okay, so this one, the fuzzy,
Yeah,
okay. These are the main ones, and, shingles, do you know about shingles?
yeah,
Okay. So it's on your brother. Okay. The books, do you already have them?
not the IA books, but I wrote those down, I've seen the polar bear book mentioned before, so,
It's essential.
Yeah.
Because it just defines everything. I know I have Spencer's book, let me see if
I could probably just do a little search with PDF in it,
yeah.
usually that stuff comes up.
Well, also when you're moving websites, this is really important, so Donna's book, Polar Bear book, okay.
I'll definitely watch the rest of the, presentation online where it
Okay.
puts the video up.
Okay, so just so you know, what we're going through is, the different kinds of filters.
Okay.
And I love it here, so this is, the main thing with duplicate content is what technology's trying to do is determine what the content fingerprint is.
Mhm.
And I know this is old,
Mhm.
but, you know, I used to work on the site. What they do is they take the elements off that are common to the pages,
Mm-hmm,
and that's the content fingerprint.
okay.
Okay, so they're taking this, and if you notice, they have very similar boilerplates.
Mm-hmm.
That's why this is considered duplicate content.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what about the pharmacy site? Does it have the same boilerplate?
I don't remember which, if they had the same, oh, they didn't, okay.
Well, okay, so a press release site.
What about the one with the WebMD and the other web,
Medicine,
directory?
Yeah,
So, was it that they had different search features on the side, so Google didn't exclude those features?
Yep,
Those
they-
category features, okay.
Yep.
So that's what was considered duplicate.
okay, so there's
Okay.
things like linkage properties, what are the number of hyperlinks going in and out of the page? These have different linkage properties too. So
Okay.
A, they don't have the same boilerplate, B, they don't have the same linkage properties. Also, host name resolution, who owns, so this is all techie crap,
Yeah.
but who owns it?
So National Health Institute and Cancer Institute were probably owned by the same ones?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
WebMD and MedicineNet,
Same ones, sure,
Okay.
okay.
Okay,
Huh, I thought about, the same domain and subdomain, obviously, but I didn't even think about the host.
yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, so a shingle is, and there's super shingles and mega shingles, but this is how, software engineers showed me this. Once upon a midnight, these are all shingles, like a shingle on a roof. And so they take the unique content fingerprint and they break them down into shingles and super shingles and they compare them.
Okay.
So the fourth, so I use this ugly, okay, so I take away the boilerplates.
Mm-hmm.
Word set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, that's featured items. Now I'm gonna sort price high, low.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me?
Get rid of the duplication. Is it the same content?
Yeah, I mean, it's same 1, 2, 3, 4.
Same
Six.
shingles.
Yeah, okay.
Is it the same website? Is it the same boilerplate?
I'm assuming yes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They have this, probably the same, similar Windows properties.
yeah. So different content.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So yes, in other words, so whenever you see these, it's content. And this is where you want a query to deliver you to specific information. That's what users are.
Yeah.
So the checklist, would you think that's a duplicate content checklist? This, but it
Boilerplate,
is.
linkage properties, host name, resolution, shingles. I mean, typically I wouldn't have, but now that you
That's-
explain it makes sense. I
Yeah.
would have just gone, similarity of content using like a checker, check.
Mhm.
similarity.
That's all this is. And I'm uploading this as a separate document so
Okay.
that people can print it out.
Yeah.
And that way they can have that. So, these are the 8 solutions.
Provide text or-
So when do you use one versus the other? When do you not use one?
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's basically the presentation. But does that, because you're a technical person, this probably makes perfect sense to you.
Yeah, I mean, I do this stuff all the time, but it's just, I didn't realize the other stuff, like the shingles and stuff, that's pretty interesting.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Now, those
Mhm.
things I first showed you, don't they make sense now?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Definitely. Well, I really appreciate that, and I look forward to looking into your stuff
Okay.
later,
I
digging into
will,
it.
I will put a folder,
Yeah.
I'll label it
Mhm.
technical,
Okay.
so that people who are non-technical, you'll know which it's for you,
Yeah.
okay?
All right. I really appreciate it.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you.
Drew, nice to meet you. I'll follow up on LinkedIn too.
Okay.
Thanks.
There's a Connect Four or however many game out there. And, I don't know when I found it, I saw this photoshopping, so.
I love Photoshop, but I don't like it now.
What about GIMP? Have you used GIMP?
Yeah, but there's stuff I need to have on Photoshop, that
Right.
Photoshop has that I really like.
I learned Photoshop back in the day, then I stopped pirating it, and I used GIMP, and for the longest time, GIMP has been just really slow because it's Python, and the way they initialized it is just doggedly slow. The last version, they now in Windows anyway, they default to a single window environment, like in Photoshop, and their initialization speed is rocking fast. So
Oh,
it's
that's cool. I'll look at it again.
Yeah.
I'll look at it again.
It's like 2.10 or whatever .10 the latest version is. It seems pretty cool. But anyway, I laughed my ass off when I first saw this Photoshop. He spun the.
Oh my gosh. I haven't seen this in forever. I feel old.
Every time we see it, I saw a Connect 4 game in the store the other day, and then they got one at the pop-up library right now. And I just love it because it's like.
Is the PowerPoint gonna be available after the class?
Everything.
Okay, great, cause I wanted to get that list of 8.
You will. It's a separate document too.
Okay.
So because what I do with that, I have both the, how to determine, so there's 4 things.
Right.
And I was showing him that, I did that on purpose. I know it's not usually good to make people feel confused at the beginning of a workshop, but that's the point, is that a lot of people think something's duplicate content and it isn't, or they don't think it's duplicate content and it is.
Yeah.
So, 4 things to help you identify it, and tools that can help you. And then those 8 things. And the hard thing about the 8 is A, knowing which one to use, and B, once you use it, it's consistent.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. And with software, the labeling system is so important. And, every software should have a help section no matter what, you know? And sometimes people want the how-to stuff, and they'll go to the help section, and they don't, so mostly they don't find it.
Yeah.
So that's neat with software and knowledge bases. So one of the things I'm doing, because there's a organization called the Information Architecture Gateway. It's not in competition with the IAI. It's part of the National Science Foundation, and we're building a data knowledge base that is search engine friendly and also helps you manage duplicate content. And
Are you using, is it custom built CMS platform, or is it one that,
it's gonna be open source,
okay,
so,
cool.
and it'll be easy to find. But
Yeah.
yeah, so,
I just figured I'd pick people's brains, because I'm a technical writer, and we're working on a revamped help center for our tutorials and educational content. And so we're looking at other platforms. Right now, we're on 2 different platforms, we wanna combine them into one.
so this is perfect.
Yeah, this comes at the right time.
It does,
Yeah.
because when I get a duplicate content project,
Mhm.
it's always after the fact.
Yeah.
It's not before,
Yeah.
so.
So I'd much rather start from scratch and build these best practices in.
Yeah, and a lot of students, I don't know if any of you are students, you know, they start out with blogs, but they don't realize that out of the box blog software delivers duplicate content, and they start tagging everything.
Oh boy.
And I have done research over and over, and, you know, because it's ongoing, and it's not the right architecture for,
Is tagging ever a good thing? Cause my supervisor's really into, he's like, oh, we gotta come up with a tagging strategy, but I don't know if there's maybe a
No.
better way to
no.
deal with.
What you do is you come up with the categories first,
Okay.
okay? And I would use open card sort. Now, the problem with open card sort, I'm just gonna be honest with you, is it tends to be expensive. And the
Okay.
reason it's a little expensive is you need a lot of users to take the test participants. However, the cost benefit is substantial.
Okay.
Okay. You can do a follow-up card sort test, but you don't have to. I recommend that you do it. Optimal sort is perfect for that. And I would work with an information architect to help you set up the test. And the least expensive way to get that, I don't know if you're joined the Information Architecture Institute, they have a mentorship program.
Okay.
So if you joined our mentorship program, you can find an information architect that specializes in card sort and setting up card sorting tests. And they can even help you run through it until you get the hang of it. I'm mentoring actually a Chinese student at University of Illinois. I'm like, how did you guys match me so perfectly? And actually she's doing a Chinese medical site, so.
Very cool.
Yeah,
we currently don't have a lot of site users, maybe like 50, because they're all customers who bought our product,
Okay.
our software product, and this is part of what they're buying.
well, you'll need your current users and new users. Are you gonna be the only 2 that stay? I don't
I
care.
don't know. Just wondering that too.
Don't know,
Well, I knew
I'm sticking around.
that those guys were gonna leave, because they wanted to see another, and it's probably the same session I wanna see. But if it's hard, you gotta start out with, you gotta understand it's not as simple as looking at something. And it's a funnel. So we're gonna go over this. But if you wanna take a bio break or grab a cookie.
I did that already.
I got my snack.
Okay.
Do you know if that water there is for the speakers?
That's for everybody. Do you
Is
want
it?
some?
I would love some, thank you.
Would you like one?
They ran out
Yes,
over.
yeah, they ran out.
Oh, they're right here.
I tried palm, I tried coffee, and, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. So, and I would do the Information Architecture Institute instead of a user experience.
Okay.
Because like I said, the membership is, I forget what it is, like $25.
Okay.
And card sorting is very specific to information architects. So have you ever used card sorting software?
Not the software.
Okay, I have a screenshot of it. So,
I mean, I've done card sorting exercises in real life, but not software based.
oh, you've done them in real, in face-to-face?
Yeah, it was just a very small project, so.
I think it's fun to do face-to-face. Because I do children too.
Oh, yeah?
And children are hilarious. They're smarter than you give them credit for.
Mhm.
2-year-olds on pads, tablets. They know they know how to swipe. They know how to go back. They know how to tap and double tap as young as 2 years old. And those are the main things they have to do. And if something doesn't work, they go back to where they started. So it's so ingrained in their heads. So that's why wizards are a problem, because if you don't know something's ahead, so that's why having like a table of contents, part 1, we're gonna do this, part 2, we're gonna do this, part 3, we're gonna do this. It's gonna work. So, you guys, I'll move on. And plus, I often love it when it's. Seriously, did you know that, in terms of technical, that, women get challenged more than men, number one. And the challenge is they're a-holes. So the only company that I never got challenged at, and the questions were awesome, is it was a purely women-owned company. So it's really interesting for that. All right, now there are 4 things that determine duplicate content. Okay, there's more than 4, just so you know, but these are the 4 main ways. They're major, they're big. So the checklist is short, but they're probably things you never even thought about. So for a crawler like Google, there's crawler-based filters, there's index-based filters, and there's search results filters. So 1, 2, 3. Have you ever heard these phrases before? This is how most search engines determine duplicate content.
It's been a while, I've seen, and a lot of these terms look familiar, because I did take an SEO class, but that was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm one of the pioneers of SEO. So I've been doing it since 1995, and I've been teaching search engine friendly design for 19 years. So I'm hoping to teach here, because I think the UX program here is fantastic. Are you guys, do you UX, did you graduate?
No, neither. My background is actually in graphic design, so
Cool.
originally, so I guess kind of touch UX from time to time in the past, so that's what got me interested.
Yeah, same here. I was a designer for 16 years, and then I turned technical writer. So,
Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
And my ex-husband is a graphic designer.
Yeah.
That's how our firm started. And then I did a school bus company, and you know those crossing control arms that come out? We were the first school bus company to do it. And so I was in charge of the website, and I was in charge of helping promote the website. That's how I became an SEO. And that's when I realized how you architect and design a site affects how it appears in search results. And then I learned what you do for, Google didn't exist back then. I also learned the more you optimize for a web search engine, your site search engine results are more accurate. So it's just years and years of doing this. And again, some of these slides are from my software engineer friends. So they're telling me. I'll tell you which ones they are too. So this was one of them. They just said, okay, here's what, the shingles is the big one. So I'll show you what a shingle is. And it's hugely important. Now, I do have the technical stuff for this. So what I that guy who's technical, I'm gonna make a folder when I upload this, and it's gonna say technical. So if you want the technical stuff, and the reason I'm gonna recommend that you have it is you're probably gonna have to convince somebody. And when you have something that's from Google, or you know what I mean, it really convinces. So the big filter is they're gonna try to filter out duplicate URLs. So one of the biggest things to do is you need to have absolute control over how your URL structure is. So anytime you're working with a content management system, with a blog, absolutely be able to control your URLs, because most search engines want the shortest label possible that communicates what the document is about. And you put all the extra stuff at the end, and that way it's easier for you to filter out the duplicates. But if you're gonna make any search engine crawl all these documents, and by the way, a graphic image is a document, so you don't want that. So the / is actually something separate. So the best thing you can do is, in a database, consistently link to the same document, or in a website, consistently link to the same URL. So if you like the www because it's a mental model, people think www, then link to it. Always say www. If it's starts with HTTPS, constantly link to it with HTTPS. And that way you're communicating to both humans as well as technology, this is the best URL. If you don't do it, technology's gonna pick it. And they usually don't pick the right one. And so what we do is, have you ever heard of canonicalization?
No, I have, but I don't remember. I probably remember the concept, but not paired up with the term.
Okay. So Google actually has a consolidate duplicate URLs. I'll add this to the presentation. Okay. Poor guys, I bet this wasn't what they expected. And then it tells you, why should I choose the canonical URL? And then it tells you how to do it. Right there, okay? Because I'm not gonna sit there and go through, I can, but one of the things I'm looking for is what Google sees and what I see with a tool. So if I'm seeing 12,000 pages missing and they're landing pages that I want to rank, I'm in trouble, because they're also not in sitemaps. So this is contradictory information. There's 12,000 URLs that are landing pages that I want a search engine to pick up, but the person who created a sitemap didn't include them. So this is a huge gap.
So might those missing pages be search result pages or
No, don't.
what kind of pages?
You've got to have access to them, so that URL structure has to be really, first of all, it's to be, a URL is a label.
Mhm.
You know, file name is a label. That means they're also not linking to them. So remember I said the number one thing you communicate is consistently linked to the same document on your website. This site is not consistently linking to their most important pages. And they're also telling the search engine, in this case, it's a search engine, crawl these pages. They're telling it, only crawl these. So you want to look for things like that. You want these two numbers to be very, very close. What's in the sitemap, what you see in Google. If you see a big gap, there might be a duplicate content issue. And a lot of times it's just simply you're not linking to the right content. And you're not filtering out duplicates. So that's why I tell people when you make a URL, just make one that's, I'm going backwards, sorry. Just make one that people are going to look at and they're gonna be fine with it. So let me find this one. Here. So what you do is, once they see his question mark or a funky character, to them it's whoa. So if you put all this stuff here at the end, you can filter it out. You can go into Google Search Console and Bing Webmaster Tools and filter this out. In a knowledge base or software, you can filter this all out so that you don't have all 3 of these, or 19 million, appear in the software results. So the first thing is good label. Second thing is put the crap, pardon my language, at the end of it. And then you can sort this out. So like session ID is for personalization. So what do? You filter out, go into Google and say, don't crawl session ID. So I have an example of this, so I just jumped ahead, so I can go back. Okay. So what you want to look for in your analytics is what you're submitting here and what they're picking up. So if there's a huge gap, something's wrong. And one of the things you should check is, are you delivering duplicate content? So there's a big gap here and a big gap here. Okay, so that'll help you with query time filters, is put the least important stuff at the end, so it's easier to filter out. The index time filters, there's 4 of them, and this is what you want to use for your checklist. So I have a separate checklist. So a boilerplate. Okay, so think of a boilerplate as a section, like a template. And what a search engine does, and I got this straight from the source, is they strip out the template elements, and that's how they determine what the unique document or content fingerprint is. So this is an old National Cancer Institute site, and also their global footer. So what I'm going to do, this is the unique content fingerprint because we filter out the templated items. So they're using this as the content fingerprint. Come on. Oh, can you get it open?
Oh, the door is locked on that
I'm
side.
sorry. So you came in at the right time. Okay, so, you're good. I'm gonna do this again so you can see it. We're getting there. Okay, so the first thing, before they determine what a shingle is they need the content fingerprint. So they're gonna strip out boilerplate elements to get the content fingerprint. So think of that too when you're building the software. What is the unique content fingerprint of the document? Because that is what the search engine's gonna pick up. So National Cancer Institute website, this is the unique content fingerprint, and the boilerplate elements are stripped out. So do you get that? You get it?
Navigation.
Okay. Any boilerplate, anything that's on a lot of pages, they're gonna strip that out. And they're gonna say, this is the document fingerprint. Now, National Cancer Institute and National Institute of Health, they have similar boilerplates, don't they? Okay, so what is that? Indicator of duplicate content, it's a red flag. National Institute of Health and a pharmacy association, do they have similar boilerplates? No. So that's why this is this is more duplicate content than that pharmacy. Okay, the other thing they're looking at is authority. How many links point to the website, how many links go out of the website. All right, so here's the pharmacy site. Okay, boilerplates are clearly different. The link development to the National Institutes of Health, is it the same or similar as the link development to the Pharmacy Association? They'd be very, very different. One's a government site, the other one's specifically for pharmacists. They have the linkage properties to the National Cancer Institute and the linkage properties to the National Institute of Health. They are different, but they're similar. So they're looking, one, at the boilerplates and the unique content fingerprint, and two, they're looking at the linkage properties. Okay, this is all geek speak. The best way to say it, who has control over the websites? Okay, let's go back here. Does the National Institute of Health control the Pharmacy Association website? Does the National Institute of Health control the National Cancer Institute? Yes. Okay. Remember the WebMD site and the MedicineNet site? WebMD bought MedicineNet, so now it's a property of WebMD. So therefore, does WebMD control MedicineNet? Yes. So that's what they're looking for. Who controls the websites? Okay, and that's the geeky way of saying it. And then they're looking at shingles. So first, they do all that stuff, and they have the unique content fingerprint. Now they're gonna take that fingerprint, that text, and they're gonna break it down into shingles. And so, think about shingles on a roof. I don't know if any of you ever roofed. My dad, I just recently lost my dad, was a carpenter, so I know how to shingle a roof. And my sister does it much better than I do. So, these are shingles. Once upon a midnight tree, da, 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 da. And there's things called super shingles and mega shingles. So super shingles is 6 shingles, mega shingles is 15.
So that's really you're chunking, you're shifting a window, chunking,
Yep,
freeze.
yep. That's what they're doing. They're not, so they're not simply looking at that text and comparing the text. It's not a simple one-to-one. They're breaking that text down into word sets.
Well,
that overlap.
so like if you do natural language processing, NLP, it'll kind of simplify the words in a sense.
Yeah.
So you're just doing this.
Just, this is an example, okay?
Shingles come up in NLP terminology.
No, and that's why this is straight from, software engineer, just so you know.
And so what's the point of shingling? Why, is that,
Makes search results more accurate.
okay, if shingles are more alike or,
Yep.
okay,
All right, so I'm gonna do this.
okay.
I'll see if we can do this. Old site, but the reason I'm using it is that there's only 6 products, okay? So we have get rid of the boilerplate. Here's the sorting parameter, featured items. Okay, let's say this is a shingle, this is a shingle, and these are all shingles. Okay? Then we go to the next page and it's sort price, height, low. Get rid of the boilerplates. Are they the same word sets?
The same, just in different order.
Just in a different order? Okay. So, do they have the same boilerplate or a similar?
Yes.
Do they have the same linkage properties?
Yeah.
Yes, because they're just the same page with different labels. Does the same company control the website? Do they have the same word sets? Therefore, that's duplicate content. That is how a search engine. It's a major way that people separate this out. In the technical folder that I have, I'll put it's Andre Broder who created Shingles.
Okay.
I'll include that in the technical.
So
I wrote it down, okay.
I was thinking about the blog thing you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking about like machine vision blogs that I've read, and a guy will write how to set up OpenCV 3 or 2 or whatever, different versions, and he'll write a setup guide for it.
Mm-hmm.
Would you count that as duplicate content or not?
Yeah.
So set up OpenCV on Ubuntu, set up OpenCV on Windows, and then you get
No,
different
that's
versions.
unique content.
Okay.
That's unique content.
So they're very similar.
But the shingles are very different. The word sets. Think of shingles as word sets. Like that's why I did this. Or, his name is John, by the way. That's how they break this. So think content fingerprint down to shingles. And they're gonna compare them. So, so anytime you see these things, it's duplicate content. Want me to go do that again, or did
Well,
it make sense?
So, isn't it still duplicate content though, to a degree?
Those 4 things. These 4 things, this is actually the checklist to see if something's duplicate content, because these are the 4 main ways that duplicate content. So they compare word sets, who controls it, are the linkage properties inbound and outbound, and that includes the link from document to document on your own website
Okay.
and your own software.
Yeah.
And are the templates the same?
So
It's this, that's the,
typically, a good website will have a template that all of, like the same header on all of the pages or something. Is that
there's
outside of this boilerplate or?
if it's the same header, then it is part of the boilerplate.
Okay.
So that's part of the problem, is a lot of people put things in boilerplates that shouldn't be boilerplated.
Then what would you do for branding consistency instead of?
Well, no, I would keep the brand, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
It's just, there has to be unique content in there for
Yeah.
the content fingerprint. So don't put something in a boilerplate, or if you're putting something in the boilerplate that's important for people, a search to see, people who search, put it in the main content too, put it in the document fingerprint. Use breadcrumb links, location-based breadcrumb links. You know, that's really important in software too, so people have a sense of place.
What's an example you can think of where it's in the boilerplate, you wouldn't want something like a current or time-sensitive piece? Like 2017 projects, 2019 projects.
I'd want the 2019, okay, so let's say it's a news release. I would have it in the news release section, but I would absolutely have the label 2019, you know, articles, or and I'd have an intro paragraph that briefly summarizes what people are gonna find on the page. And I'd feed the search engine, I'd pick the best page if you're having it sorted, and consistently link to it. Because that's the most important thing you can do, is consistently link to something in the same way, and then technology, not just the search engine, sees it as important. And then a lot of people orphan or they silo. So an orphan would be like a pop-up window. One of the worst orphans I've ever seen is somebody put their dictionary or their glossary, all the definitions are in a pop-up window. Well, what does that communicate? You don't think it's important. So if you only put it in one category and you don't link to it from another, section of the site, you're also saying it's not important. So when I do a software website, I always link to the help section or the how-to section. And if I have a blog and I'm talking about something about the software, I link to that section about the software. So it's very contextual. And it's not it's something that you have to curate. It's not necessarily something you can program. But would you have expected this to be the 4 things to look for duplicate content? I was dumbfounded when I learned this. And once I understood shingles and boilerplates, I got it. They're looking for a unique content fingerprint, and they're looking for shingles. And they should be as unique as possible. So what I want to do is go back to the beginning. Is this duplicate content? Okay. Okay, CSS Zen Garden. Do they have the same boilerplates?
Yeah.
Yes, they do. Do they, CSS Zen Garden, do they have the same linkage properties? Very likely, they do. All 4 pages are on CSS Zen Garden, so it's the same host. Do they have the same words? So guess what? It's duplicate content. Okay. WebMD and MedicineNet. Okay, this is old, I understand, but WebMD owns MedicineNet. So, host, does WebMD control MedicineNet? Yes. Do they have similar templates? They do now. Do they have the same shingles? Yes. So this is duplicate content. Okay. Let's jump to the next one. So with tagging, what happens is you'll have stuff in content that's also in content management, and if they're too similar, like you saw with the jewelry, okay, is it the same website? Does the same company control both web pages?
Here?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Same boilerplate. Okay. Linkage properties were probably similar because it's content management. If they have mostly the same articles, then it's duplicate content. If they're linking to mostly unique articles, then it's not duplicate content. The problem with the tagging system is you're getting the same word sets, just ordered in a different way. Yep, so it's a maybe. Clickbait, I hate clickbait, right? Same template, very similar. NIH controls the National Cancer Institute. They do have different linkage properties, because this is more specific, because this is specific to cancer, this is more general. But do they have the same shingles? Yes. Probably. Okay. Do these have the same boilerplates? No. Do they have the same linkage properties? No. Do they have the same, does NIH control this site or does this site control this site? Do they have the same shingles? Kind of, exactly. So the only thing they have are the same shingles. So it's probably not duplicate content to a search engine. So that those 4 things is how you determine duplicate content. And these are the things that are big indicators. So what I have for the downloadable stuff is that table in a separate document, so that any project that you work on, you can just download it and use it. But this is how you determine duplicate content. Basically, I'm looking for 3 of the 4. If it's 2, it's maybe. If it's 3, it probably is. If it's all 4, you've got a duplicate content issue. I would have never, ever thought of this when I was starting. When I started out graphic design, just like you guys, Photoshop. For me, I had to learn Photoshop. Illustrator, I gave up on that. I'm not as talented as other people.
So in our case, we will be occasionally reusing some content in part. So say an article has a section that we would borrow from another article of our own. Would that cause duplicate content issues?
Partial duplicate content, but there's other content on the page that's unique.
Okay, so that wouldn't trigger it as
It
much?
wouldn't trigger it.
Yeah.
It'd probably, so if you have, so content at the top of the page is considered more important than content at the bottom of the page. So if you put the most unique content, that's why I'm big on intro paragraphs. Okay, and if you're dealing with, in your case, metadata is gonna be important.
Okay.
Okay, if you're dealing with graphic images, videos, any kind of multimedia, that's when metadata is more important. It wouldn't be important for Google, but it's very important for other types of documents.
I've not used metadata before. I mean, I know what it is and what it does, but I'm not entirely sure how I would, like, what I would attach to the content. So are you talking about metadata associated with images?
There's different kinds of metadata, and you can find, it's usually under properties. So here's an example. They might not have done this well, but so this is file properties. There you go.
Okay.
Here's the description. So the title, okay, the file name, that's a bad file name. It's an identifier. Author, subject would be description. This is a bad label. It's Adobe, what do you expect? and keywords. You can do this in Photoshop, you can do this in almost any type of digital document, have metadata. Some search engines use metadata, some don't. A lot of search engines use metadata. More search engines use metadata than don't.
So, say we were considering using a tag for, I don't know, how to, would using that as a keyword instead be better
If you-
for the search engine?
Yes, so I definitely put it in the title and the subject and keywords.
Thank you.
People, when I save a PowerPoint document, so here's PowerPoint, file, save as. Okay, it might ask me properties, so that's usually when I do it, is when so there's properties. File, subject, author, company, category, keyword, you see what I mean? So if you're tagging something, what would you do? Put that as a category. So
Okay.
every content management system usually has different metadata properties.
Now, we're using WordPress right now, and I'm sure
Oh,
there's,
if you're
Some
using
place.
WordPress, get Genesis.
okay.
That is the most, okay, it looks ugly, but the reason I'm recommending it is that you can configure it beautifully to
Okay.
do all these things that you want it to do.
Okay, that's a plugin?
Genesis, oh no, it's a template,
Okay.
and you can make it look as pretty as you want.
Cool.
And it's really inexpensive too, so. So,
Yes. In your opinion, a very good metadata
Mhm.
tagging.
Now, is this what you expect? That's what I mean. I'm very honest about, I was dumbfounded when I learned this. And then I would go back to the websites that I worked on. So, Cancer Institute is one of my clients, Home Depot, was one of my clients, but I didn't work on any kind of duplicate management, they have an in-house SEO. WebMD is one of my clients, their WebMD became my client because they bought 6 of my websites. And we had to minimize, so it's an ongoing minimizing duplicate content, so they're really good in-house SEOs. And this is what we use. So there's 2 types of software. One's called Screaming Frog. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's another funny name. And there's another software called Deep Crawl. And I use them both, but when I know I am dealing with a website that gonna have duplicate content delivery, I always use Deep Crawl because it helps me identify duplicates, and it also helps me identify orphans. So remember, you saw that content gap? Right here. Where we saw this big content gap at the beginning? This tells you where there's issues. And that way you can, so once you know where the issues are, you can troubleshoot them. So, I have Screaming Frog on my computer, so I'm just gonna show you real quick, cause then we have a break, there's a 3 o'clock break.
3 o'clock's not at night, you're in different time zone?
Yes, I'm out right outside Chicago. So you can see, like if you go into the meta keywords, you can see duplicates. You can go into the meta description and you can see the duplicates. Go into page titles, you can see the duplicates. Response codes, we'll go into that. You see, you can actually go into the software and see the duplicates. And that helps you identify them and be able to troubleshoot them.
The marketing model for Screaming Frog?
Oh, you just have to buy the license.
One version one time, or is it period?
I just buy it per client. So if I'm doing, okay, I'm done with Home Depot, so they have an in-house SEO. But since I know they deliver duplicate content, I automatically get and Screaming Frog, you buy the license. Deep Crawl is it's a subscription. And then I just, it's a monthly payment
So Screaming Frog, you gotta buy per site,
per site.
and Deep Frog, you can do as many as one that you pay.
No, it's per site.
Oh,
Screaming Frogs per site. I do multiple. Do you wanna see Deep Crawl? Do you guys wanna see Deep Crawl?
Sure.
Or do you wanna take a break?
Either or.
Okay. I have screenshots, but I can actually show you. I don't mind. I really like this site. I mean, I really like this site. They have something called Google Hangouts. That is so good.
what do you mean by that? I use Google Hangouts.
Well, if you wanna ask questions, you can really get really good answers.
Do we able to support people, or do they have like an open chat room?
You just submit questions to John and it's live. So I'm just gonna go into this one. No duplicate pages. So that's pretty cool. Oh, this is, I got the wrong site, sorry guys. Let's do this one. Look at how many duplicates they have. So they have duplicate pages, duplicate titles, and duplicate descriptions, pages with duplicate body content. So do any of you code? Do you code? Okay. So titles is bad. The only time a title with a near duplicate or a duplicate is acceptable, think paginated content. So like if you have a big category page and you don't wanna list the view all, you have it broken down into 10, 24, something like that, that's fine, because you would do description page 1, description page 2. They're gonna be very similar. So you're gonna have multiple duplicate meta descriptions too. So.
We have a lot of how do I blah in product A.
Yeah,
And so would that be considered a near duplicate because the titles follow a consistent format?
yeah, you wanna mix and match, but I better get out of here. I don't wanna get in trouble with a client. But that's what I mean, is you can actually use these tools to help you find where the duplicates are. And, duplicate headings. Now, you can have duplicate headings if, let's say you're describing services or a case study, challenge, solutions, results. Okay, you're gonna have those on multiple pages. That's okay. Because you have enough words on the page that are unique for the unique content fingerprint. What you don't want is the first heading. You definitely want those to be unique. So this here is a problem.
Can you show us?
Yeah, these two, see how they say? This and this both say bathroom faucets.
Can we actually see what they look like?
This isn't an easy subject to teach, is it? It isn't. So this has bathroom faucets and something else has also bathroom faucets. So
Can we see the other one?
it's the same thing. I mean, it's a different URL, but it's the same.
Special batting.
Mm-hmm. Bathroom faucets, bathroom faucets. What is this? This is a search results page. What did I say was one of the things that delivers duplicate content? Site search engines.
I'll do that in the probably, the next big, and after the break is how to fix that.
How to fix all this.
We jumped ahead with that part.
Okay. I'm just asking, if you guys want me to keep going, I will.
Specifically, how do you fix that? Cutting off the search results.
Robots exclusion. And I got specifically how to do it in here. It's up to you.
I
You
can
guys-
do with a short break.
Short break? Okay, this is where I wanted to stop. Okay, so I'm gonna do the shingles. By the way, that's how I do presentations, is it depends on who the people are that are sitting in here, is I wanna give you the stuff that can help you do your job better. So if there's something that I have, I can give to you, or if there's something I don't have, I can find and give to you. Let me know, because I am a search geek. I can find anything. So,
Modern day library.
yes, I am. Okay, I want a cookie.
Hope there's some left.
Oh, you wore boots today. I wanted to wear boots so bad today. Do you want, you guys, if you want the actual presentation instead of the PDF? I have it on my,
PDF is fine.
you don't
Yeah.
care?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm fine with
Do you
PDF
want the
also.
PDF, do you want all, a slide per page, or 2 slides per page, what would you prefer?
Doesn't matter to me, I keep most of my stuff
Okay.
digitally, so.
Okay.
I think that was the biggest shift going from graphic design to tech writing is 100% of my job is digital and web-based.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I'm no longer using applications on my laptop and I'm no longer printing things out and everything.
Do you know why, it depends on your audience, because I work in, academia as well as business. And, you know, I work on sites like the National Cancer Institute, and I work on sites like the College of American Pathologists is one of my clients. Okay, these are people that, first of all, they're going to print it out because it's harder to read. They'll have a digital version and they'll keep it there, but they'll have a print version too, because it's too hard to read, even on a tablet. So,
That's also another reason we're doing our help center in little snippets of information, so the tutorials are much more focused rather than putting an entire workflow on one page. We're doing just one segment of the workflow and then moving them on to the next segment.
okay, that's a wizard. So, so those 2 books that I recommended will show you that process
Mm-hmm.
and how to set that up.
Yeah, cool.
I know my clock's off. Every presentation is you do what the audience needs. So that's how it is. And by the way,
Thank you.
okay.
It's got a lot of stories with it.
I just had a Bon Jovi story, and it's funny because my favorite band is Metallica. And I have a niece named Metallica.
Wow.
Really?
And she's a little ballerina. And she's the one that's good at math. So and she was the New Year's baby. And I remember when she was born, I had like 3 wishes. I secretly wanted a girl, mostly because my dad is a girl person. And I thought, it would be cool to have a New Year's baby, you know what I mean? And I knew if it was a girl, her name was gonna be Metallica. So I wrote that for her in a card, and I said, so you're my little dream come true. And she is the girliest girl. We just call her Tally. So, and Aunt Sherry is gonna teach her all of this, because she loves math. All right. I don't know if you've ever heard this phrase, SEOs say it all the time, a signal versus a directive. Okay. Signal means maybe we'll take this into account as a ranking factor. A directive is we will take this into account as a ranking factor. In duplicate content, this is a duplicate content indicator. This is not a duplicate content indicator. So that's why I showed you those 4 things. So if it's only one thing, probably not duplicate content. If it's 2 things, it's, so it gets stronger and stronger. So those 4 things are all directives. They're yes. The 8 things, I'll show you the ones which are signals and which ones are directives. Okay. Information architecture and site navigation is absolutely the most important thing. Every content management system, every, search engine I've worked on, whether it's in a kiosk or in a library or on the web, is gonna look at that, and they're gonna look at the shingles. So, are you consistently linking to the same documents? And are you using the labels correctly? is the shortest label that communicates what something is about. Do you have a strong information set? And it doesn't have to represent a hierarchy. So like when I do images, I do www.com/images/image name. .jpeg or .ping. You don't have to do images/photos/jpeg/this. Shortest URL that you can make. Okay, so look at this. If I have control over a URL, like this is a session ID, which you would get from personalization, put it at the end. So that question mark is like a, uh-oh, so if you're working on an international site, they want you to use country before language. So Canada, English. USA, English. Great Britain, English. Straight from the horse's mouth. That's John. He's usually extremely nice. He's, first of all, he's very knowledgeable, extremely nice, and he will answer your questions. So I highly, highly, highly recommend. He does Webmaster Hangout on Fridays. You can send him questions ahead of time, and he'll answer your questions. And I always, because I can't usually make it, so I go through the deep crawl notes. Okay. It helps if there's a structure on the page, but you're not going to count it if it's done incorrectly. So that's when we were looking at Screaming Frog. So we want to look at the page titles. We want to look at the meta descriptions, the meta keywords, you know, H1s and H2s. Heading 1, heading 2. Do you guys all know what these are? Page titles, meta description, keywords, H1, H2? You want me to show you on Mayo Clinic? Would you?
Yeah, I'm gonna look at it. See what I can do up to your.
That's not. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Here we go. Let's go to this presentation. Let me get out of here so we can get the right page. Hey, what happened to my search engine design? All right. Sorry for the delay, but I think you should see it. Here we go. All right, now this is a previous version. This is the title, right up here. Okay, why is that a good title? Up the top. Can you see it?
It's short-ish.
So that's good. It's front-loaded. It doesn't begin with Mayo Clinic. It begins with subject. Who would use the word influenza? Who would use the word flu? And patient caregivers. Google ignores, and a lot of search engines ignore punctuation. So that's the title. Okay, these are navigation labels. Most people didn't know that these were navigation because most people expect the logo to be in the upper left corner. This is a previous version. This is also navigation. These are good navigation labels. third level navigation, fourth level navigation. This is an H1. Oops. Okay, so this is the URL. Now look at the URL structure.
What do the numbers mean? They're not,
Document number.
okay.
Okay, but if I just showed a user that URL, tell me what the page is about.
It's about influenza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you notice the garbage is at the end?
Yep.
Okay, by garbage, it's not really garbage to the technology, but it's garbage to the user.
Right.
Okay? So they're front loaded, that's a term to know is front loading. And then the H1,
Front loading in this context means that the important stuff is at the front.
beginning. Okay, so this is a bad image name. Okay, this is a really crappy image, I like it JPEG ping. You guys are graphic designers, so you get it. Okay?
Yeah.
And you should use hyphens instead of underscores. This is a funky character. I mean, wouldn't this just be images / cataracts dot ping?
You don't like the underscores in a web page because it blends with the address bar of the text box?
That's the user-friendly reason for it, but in computer language, an underscore is character. So that's a punctuation mark that Google does consider, so they always say hyphens instead of underscores in the URL structure. I have a URL structure checklist.
Wait, so they don't consider an underscore a character,
It depends on the search engine.
but a hyphen, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So hyphens instead of underscores. I will upload the URL structure checklist for you guys, okay? So that's why Mayo Clinic is good. So they don't have everything perfect, but it's good enough. Okay? Title, URL or web address, navigation, breadcrumb, heading. Now, you guys probably don't have to do 5th level navigation, okay, so I don't think you have to worry about it. And H2. These are very clear. I would put an intro paragraph on this page, but it's very, very clear what this page is about. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Search engines love this. All right.
So why does the Mayo Clinic come up when I search, do I have the flu?
Because they didn't label it as a question. All right. So this is when this deep crawl comes in handy. Because you can see which pages, you click on this and you can see which pages are duplicates, you can see which pages have duplicate titles. Remember, if you see pagination, it's okay. But if it's not paginated content, it's not okay. Duplicate descriptions, a lot of times people put a meta tag description, the same, just as a placeholder. Make sure that doesn't say meta tag goes here, okay? Pages with duplicate body could be a real problem because the body content will have a lot of shingles in it. So now when I say shingles, you get it. It's a bunch of word sets. Okay. So that's what we were looking for when we were looking at Home Depot. Okay, so one of them might be the login page. What would be a better title? Login Home Depot. Duh. And this, can you see why I like this software? Okay. And so the metadata is usually more important than database or knowledge-based search. And this is from Donna Spencer's. So this is where, and this is also what you'll see in a blog. So you might see date, topic, tag. The problem is topic and tag are usually too similar. And whatever you want, author. Author is a big thing, it's really good. And you'll see that the metadata is really important for these. So if you're doing your software, I would absolutely work work on the metadata. And they, just so you know, web search engines do look at the metadata of graphic images, and it's absolutely a ranking factor for videos, even though we're talking about duplicate content. But that's what'll happen when you look in the software. Okay, here's how you do, this is why the URL structure is so important. If you can create www.com/search/, you just create a text file. So robots exclusion is simply a text file that tells any kind of search engine, don't access this content. So if you have control, you know, it doesn't have to be this word, you can put search hyphen results, just something. And you can say Googlebot, or you can, the asterisk means it's anything. And boom, it's problem solved. 2 lines in a text-based document will solve your site search results. You know how easy that is? I mean, and you can use Screaming Frog to see if you've blocked content, or if you haven't blocked content. So if they haven't blocked their search results, now I only crawled 500 of these, but you know, they have lots and lots of pages, but if they didn't exclude their search results, which you saw they didn't, they're gonna have to go content issues. Okay, problem with the robots.txt, think of it as a road closed, do not enter. Because it's a directive, it's a signal, not a directive, it means maybe. Which sucks. And the reason it sucks is that Google wants to control everything. And I don't agree with that. I think Google, the website owners should have control over their own content. Google can give guidelines, but it's up to the website owner to follow the guidelines that are best for the user. Google does say they would that use robots.txt to exclude your site search results, but if somebody links to your content, it will show up in search results like this. A description for this results is not available because of this. So Google wants you to use a robots meta tag. Have any of you guys used a robots meta tag? Yeah, all this says, okay, a search engine is a robot, just so you know. Don't look at the text or look at the shingles on this page, but follow the links on this page. If you say no index, no follow, it means don't look at the site, this page's content fingerprint, and don't follow the links on this page. Do you get it? If you say index, there's like, I can change this. Say index follow. Now this says, go for it. Now this is the default, you actually don't have to use this. But there was a reason that I put no index follow on this. It's a solution.
It's probably a duplicate, but the link structure you want to still have this.
The reason I would use a robots meta tag formatted exactly like this is that the shingles are the same, but the linkage properties are different.
I'm trying to think of a concrete example.
Right here. The shingles on these sites are the same.
Yeah.
Are the linkage properties on the site the same?
In the old days. Yeah, they're different.
They're different. So, if I had articles across a network of sites, I would use the robots meta tag on the duplicates, the one I just showed you.
So it's kind of like an honesty flag.
Yep. So, and I wanted, because, do you encounter this when in your job? I know you do, you've got to. All right, so let's say you've got a site that they purchased other sites. So they're gonna share all their articles. Pick the one that you want to be in the search engine index, and you don't have to put that meta tag in the HTML code. Take the others and put robots exclusion
Okay.
meta tag on it, exactly as I typed it right there.
Okay.
Did you understand that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You get it? Okay, that's why I did it, because this is something that works. You'd be surprised how well this works. Okay. Okay, canonicalization, I hate that word. Because
Funny word.
it's a funny word. My favorite word's obsolescence. I just like the sound of it. It's not a happy word, but I just like the sound of it. But canonicalization just means pick the best page. And then in your HTML code, link to the right page. Now here, now this is gonna disappear, just so you know. You can tell Google, do you want us to do www, or do you want it without the www? So whenever you link to a page, consistently use the same URL structure. Since Google's getting rid of this, it's up to you or your website owners to link consistently to the right page. So you don't link to www.domain.com on some pages and domain.com on other pages. Try to link to the same URL all the time. This is for your techies. So when you guys download this, remember to do this. So what you can do is if you put this on the end, you can actually filter things out. So this is what I do when I find that there's canonicalization problems. So I will go and I'll see if there's a canonical and if it's done correctly. If it's not done correctly, then I know what URL it is. And then I go into Google and I go into the URL inspection tool. This is in Google Search Console. And it will tell me how to fix something that's a problem. And if it's programmable, see, this is one of the reasons, this stuff's not programmed into WordPress. Have you noticed that?
I've not dug into that end of it, but
It's not in
we're a contractor.
there, no. Do you mess with HTML code? Make sure that they know the robots meta tag, robots text, and canonicalization. And you can use Screaming Frog. You can also use Deep Crawl. There's other tools, but these are very, very common ones.
Okay.
Okay, this, everybody has access to Search Console, it's free. So, they will tell you in the URL inspection tool. And if it's bad, fix it. If it's good, then just leave it alone. And since you guys are not the techies, make them do it.
I'm subcontractor, should now too.
I'm a developer, I make another developer do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about these, but these are technical. And the thing is, people don't have them in their templates. And so it makes it more difficult for you to manage duplicate content because you're gonna have to insert this into the template. Okay. Have you ever heard of a 301 redirect? Okay, now we're getting really technical. Okay. When you get it in the head, if you're migrating to new content or updated content, you don't want 2 copies of the same one. You want one, because the search engine wants the original URL and where it's going to. And the analogy I use is a change of address. Have you ever moved and, you know, I still use the US Postal Service, not a lot, but I still use it. But when I moved, I had to have my mail forwarded to me, okay? A 301 redirect is a change of address form for a server. I actually had to teach in Great Britain, and I had to have somebody send me, what's a change of address card look like, okay? And you want one, okay? So in other words, you want one detour, not more than one. Because if you do more than one, it's less trustworthy. And if it's not a 301, it's less trustworthy. So this is Deep Crawl, and what they show is there are multiple redirects. So see, this says 302, and it says redirect count 2, and there's a lot of them. So what does the search engine think?
Not reliable.
Not reliable. Exactly. And in Screaming Frog, you can go and look at the redirects. 300. And then if you see, what I do is I put them in the order. You don't want these 302s. You want them to all be 301s. Because you're basically telling the post office, instead of going from here to here, to go here, 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 here. And that annoys the bejesus out of people. And it annoys, and sometimes when there's too many, it can crash technology, it can crash a search engine. I like to use road signs because I get road signs. So one detour, 301. One detour, 1. More than one detour, bad. That's just UX, common sense. All right, so have you ever used this, the Google Search Console? Remember how I said stick the garbage stuff at the end? You can go in and say, filter out session ID, filter out sorting order, filter out this, filter out this. So you can actually instruct Google not to crawl that. And you reinforce it by how you link to your pages. So if they see you're not linking to it, and you don't think it's important, then that must be true. So that's why it's important to have control over that URL structure, because if you don't, it's going to be harder to filter this stuff out. Can you see that? It's kind of hard to see. So if you have personalization, that's where you can see a session ID. If you remember, you saw those sorting things, high to low, low to high, featured items, you can filter that out right here. Do you know how long it took Google and Bing to create these dang things? It's been a long road. Okay, the no follow attribute is a signal, it's not a directive. What you're telling a search engine is that I don't know if this link is reliable. So let's say you have a comment section in a blog, and somebody goes into the blog and they just fill it out and they link to a pornography website. Well, you know, not everybody has the time to filter, especially if you have a huge blog. So what you do is you automatically put the no follow attribute on it. And that's all this is. In the link, you just say no follow. So paid links. If you find a search engine's filling out a form, I like to put like send email. I even put it on the site search button. And I'm just communicating, don't do this. Okay. So, contrary to popular opinion, not all websites need an XML sitemap. Have you seen an XML sitemap? It is total nerd speak. All it is a URL list. Google wants to make sure, and web search engines and technology that's similar to Google, including voice, so like Alexa and stuff like that, they want to know that something exists. And a list of URLs will tell them this exists. How do but we're not accessing it. So that way it helps Alexa and all these other types of technologies know that the content exists. Now, if you don't link to it properly, what's it going to do? You see a contradiction. So, sitemaps don't replace internal linking. So what was at the top of my list? Information architecture and site navigation. So your XML sitemap should reinforce what you already have on your site. Don't put something you've robots excluded into your URL list because it contradicts. You're telling Google to not crawl something, or you're telling technology to not access something, and then in another thing you're telling technology to access it. So don't contradict. So when I go back to this list, I'm looking at don't contradict. So I don't contradict, these 2, 2 and 3, and 8, a lot of times they contradict each other. If you only have one redirect, don't put the redirect chain in the sitemap. I know it's geeky, but do you see what I mean about here are the solutions, make sure they don't contradict each other. So I put the no follow attribute in HTML on the search button. Why? Because I don't want the site search results to be crawled, to be accessed. So I'm reinforcing number 2. I'm not linking to them except in the search section. I know it's geeky, but is there anything you want me to go over again? Do you understand about making sure these reinforce each other and not contradict? So what do I do for duplicate content? I do that 4 things. Are they duplicate content? I use software to help me identify it, possibly identify it. I try to fix it using one or more of these 8 things. And if I use multiple methods, I make sure they support each other and not contradict each other. I do have this as a separate document so that it can help you team. Would it help if I included more URLs to help support each one of these. Okay. Or citations. Okay, one of the things that is downloadable is a bibliography. And so I will include the links in that. So it'll be a PDF. Do you want the Word document and the PDF, or just the PDF?
Just PDF is good.
Okay. So I will include those.
Thank you.
And now, did you expect this too?
I wasn't sure how you were defining duplicate content, so I just came in with an open mind.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good, because that's how I, like I said, I was dumbfounded when I learned.
Yeah, this is really good stuff.
Okay, so, what I did include at the end, so I'm just doing this because I know it's live streaming. So be proactive. Can you see why it's ongoing? Because your site always gets bigger. That is the number one question I get from a lot of technical people. So I included, so here's your cart sorting. So what you do is you come up with multiple items, and then you ask users to come up with categories. And it includes all kinds of qualitative data. And then I usually do this as a follow-up. Where would you find this? And I find it here to make sure you've got the good labels. And remember this, duplicate content to human users is this, but to technology it's this. That's me, not with my beret. But yeah, so go ahead and reach me there. I will update this presentation, so if you guys wanna email me or anything with, whatever you need. Here it is. I don't do sales, I'm a terrible salesman. But, so don't worry about that. If you have a question, ask, because I know I was asked to do this session, and I knew this was a tough topic, and I did the best I can. But at least I hope I gave you enough information to get you in the right direction. And all you have to say is, Sherry, I was in your World IAD workshop. Can you please take a look at something? Because I probably have the software, and I can take a look at it. Okay? I'm more than happy to do no cost. There's no strings, same with you, there's no strings attached. Okay?
This is very interesting.
You didn't, I know.
No, I didn't.
I was thinking about that, I'm like, the heart of this, once you realize what it is and you start doing it,
Yeah.
and you all of a sudden in your head, you're going, oh my God, the shingles are too similar, and then people look at you like, what are you talking about? But that's just how it is. A lot of things people ask for me is citations. So if you have a hard time convincing somebody to do something, I'm a natural librarian, so ask me for citations. I probably have them. That's
This
what.
fits right in with the state of the project I'm working on right now. So
Oh, I'm
this
so
came
glad.
at the right time, and we're gonna put it right to use.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, thank you.
Did this help you, Mr.? I forgot your name. I'm so sorry.
Gambo.
Yes.
I've dealt with this level of building before, don't do it very often, or much anymore.
Do you want to know something? Offering this as a service, if you know your stuff really well, is very helpful to people, especially if you're working with people who are about to purchase a content management system Or software, I bet you never thought about this for software.
No, I hadn't.
I mean, I didn't either,
Yeah,
and
very, very good.
same with kiosks. So,
Well, I'm designing a human machine interface warehouse or, machine that,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So Carrie Ann will post all this stuff, and you'll be able to download
Great,
it. Just,
yeah, I'll look for it.
just a warning, they're going to be large files.
Oh, that's okay.
I'll
I'll
reduce
just
them
waste
as
one
much
on
as
my
I
work
can.
network.
All right,
I'll
thank
download them
you.
there.
Cool. Well, I'm glad this helped you.
thank you. Just thinking about design processes is helpful, learning little things is always fun.
I do too, because it's constantly changing.
You never know what you're gonna run into.
Yes. That, I think, is the best part about UX, is the people who surprise you. I love that. I absolutely love that. Because, you know, I'm a, close all tabs. You know, I'm a typical nerd geek. Okay, not everybody's a typical nerd geek. So, that's right. You are absolutely right. And when I did my first usability test and, you know, after I took all my classes, you know, I worked with somebody who'd been doing usability for 20 years.
Yeah.
And she's amazing, you know. And I wasn't the facilitator, I was the observer. Not a single person and the test participants were teenagers. And then there were people in different age groups, and not a single person did anything the same way I did. And when I saw recordings of me when I was a test participant, what I said and what I did were different, which is exactly what we see observed in usability tests. Is what people say and what they do are usually two different things. That's why voice is very different from and this.
See, that really resonated with me, and that I'm kind of, I'm not really beating myself up over it. I guess I had a striking awareness of that.
Also,
I was dating this young lady, and, it didn't work out.
sorry about that. Well, neither did my marriage, so
It's okay.
I'm with you. I'm with you there.
This was a recent and brief endeavor, but it came after another relationship long as one fell apart. In any case, I invited her to dance without really inviting her to dance. And then
Poor cues. Not the cues were there weren't poor cues. The cues were unclear to her.
it was to put it succinctly, the thoughts and words didn't align with the actions
Right.
and intent. And the gravity of that, I didn't realize the gravity of that. Nor did I realize consciously the misalignment until after the fact.
Yeah.
And what really was striking and difficult to cope with was recognizing and coming to terms with that disconnect between unconscious and conscious.
Yeah.
And
That's why if you get a chance to conduct tests with kids, it really changes what you think about conscious and unconscious. Because 2-year-olds,
I don't have a barrier.
they don't,
Yeah.
and I don't always test 2-year-olds, but there's a lot of, like you might have a different section of the website, because how kids use something versus parents. So the caregiver versus the patient, or the caregiver versus the child.
Yeah.
So the child, you're buying it, the parent or a relative or a loved one is buying something for the child. So if the child's gonna look at it on the web or any kind of interface, what are you doing for the child versus what are you doing for the person who loves or cares for the child? And you have to test the interface on both if the child's gonna use it. And my mother used to teach, you know who Krista McAuliffe is? In the 80s, the rocket exploded. Yeah, and she was a teacher, a science teacher that was going into space.
Yeah.
So there are Krista McAuliffe facilities there, and they hire teachers to teach kids how working as a team in space is incredibly important and how information connects, and they do different age groups. They do kids, they do teenagers, they do tweens and all that stuff. And my mother used to teach there. And it's amazing to see how different these kids think. I mean, you can tell their brains, they're at different points of brain development. And so, and also as you get older, you see, you know, what does millennial think? What does this group think? What does this group think? And what do they do? So watching and just observing is amazing. So my mother's a retired teacher, so she retired from that place, the Krista McAuliffe place, and it was amazing just to see, because I know also take special ed kids there too.
Yeah.
But if you don't see that, you don't really, you know what I mean? It's like you have to encounter it to really realize it. And it's, for me, it's like I'm creating more, you know, stuff in my brains because I'm learning it. Wow, it's amazing. And people who have different aptitudes. So artists, watching a painter, watching a sculptor, and interior. I've done tests on interior design sites.